Get real. Time to get real, everybody. I'm just doing this in case it's still recording, which I'm sure it's not.
Howdy, everyone. This is Get Real with Kacey Kasem, the podcast that goes behind the scenes of the fantasy football industry through interviews with people in the fantasy football space. This is a special episode because I sat down with my guy, get it? Actor Tom Everett Scott, to talk all about his journey in the fantasy football world. You may not know this about Tom, but he is one heck of a fantasy football player and an active part of the fantasy football community. In this episode, we talk about the 1.01 of movie roles, how he got started playing fantasy football, his favorite types of leagues, strategies, a Wonders reunion, and an up-and-coming actor named Tom Hanks that you may have heard about. We also talked about his Patriots, Mac Jones, and a ton more. This conversation was a blast, and I thank Tom so much for joining me. What a mind-blowing moment to think, hey, I'm going to be interviewing shades about fantasy football and life. If you aren't already following Tom, you need to be. Give him a follow on Twitter at Tom E. Scott. You can find me on Twitter at Kacey Kasem. You can follow the pod on Twitter at GetReal_pod. You can find my writing with the Fantasy Footballers at thefantasyfootballers.com. This podcast is a proud member of the DAP Network. You can also find the show on Patreon at patreon.com/Kacey Kasem. To help the show grow, you only need to donate a few bucks a month. Come be a part of the Stay Rad crew. Your support is greatly appreciated. Become a member to submit questions for guests, a Patreon-only perk, exclusive content, and much more. Right now, the Patreon is in its beginning stages, but the plans for it are big. If you want to help grow the show even more, make sure to rate and review the podcast. Thanks to all of you for being so rad. Thank you so much to Trophy Smack for being an affiliate of Get Real with Kacey Kasem. This is a spot to check out if you're looking for fantasy football trophies, belts, rings, draft boards, and more. I have an affiliate link below you can check out in order to view all the rad items they have there. Free shipping, free engraving, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. I've been a fan of theirs for a while. You really need to check out all their products. Make sure to use the discount code GetRealPod for a free ring with the purchase of a trophy or belt. Note, you must have both the trophy or belt plus the ring in your cart for the discount to apply. Live draft season is upon us, so what are you waiting for? And with all of that housekeeping out of the way, here's my conversation with Tom Everett Scott. Okay, so this is a special episode of Get Real with Kacey Kasem because we have Tom Everett Scott here, who isn't your typical I write for a fantasy football website or have a fantasy football podcast. He's more of a people's person per se, but he's also, somebody from awesome movies and television and everywhere. It's Scott Fishbowl even. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But how are you doing tonight, Tom, or whatever time it is there?
I'm doing all right. And it is 4 p.m. in the best time zone, the West Coast.
So people say. I hear that's the truth. Nobody ever says, hey, let's hit it up in Central Time. So
most people say that the East Coast is the best and the original and everybody else is, but I enjoy the West Coast.
Well, I have been to both, and I can say that I did enjoy. Well, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you guys which one I preferred better. That's a secret. All right. So usually I start these podcasts out asking, how did you... Well, let's go back to when you were a kid. Did you play sports? Did you watch sports growing up?
I started playing soccer when my mom didn't want me to play football. I watched football with my dad on Sundays. I definitely thought I was going to wind up playing football. And then my mom said, nope, you're going to play soccer because it's less dangerous. And so I remember just being in this assembly hall with all the kids whose moms didn't want them to play football also. And we were all sitting there. None of us knew what soccer was, honestly. And a guy with like a European accent was on stage holding a soccer ball and saying, the first rule is you can't use your hands. And we all went, man, no, what is this? And then I wound up playing soccer from pretty much like age six to, I think high school. I think was my freshman year of high school was my last year of soccer. I played 1 year Little League. Baseball in there somewhere. I was really small. I'm 6'2" now. and I was probably still only 5'4", 5'5" when I was a freshman in high school. I was a late bloomer. I remember sitting, I was like, when they do the class photo, I would be in the front row sitting in a chair with the girls. And all the boys would be standing in the back. I didn't really get tall until my junior year of high school. So I didn't really, and also I'm an artsy guy. I like theater. I played trumpet. I draw, all that stuff. And so I think, sports I love watching, but as a kid, and I love playing just like pickup sports with people, but I never really got into the organized sports thing.
Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in a little town called East Bridgewater, Massachusetts, and that is about half hour south of Boston on the way to Cape Cod. It's a tiny little town, and we only have like 3 stoplights in the whole town. There were never any, I don't know about now, but when I was growing up, there were no franchises. There was no Burger King, McDonald's, movie theater, nothing. It was just a tiny little town. You'd have to travel like 20 minutes to get to, another town that had those things.
And so were you a big, or still are a big Boston area sports fan?
Yes, much to the chagrin of everyone else in the country. I grew up that way. I grew up just loving New England Patriots. We weren't good back then. I was a huge Steve Grogan fan. We went to the Super Bowl in 1986. It was about the most exciting thing that happened to the football fans, and then we got destroyed by the Bears. But Celtics were always competing. The Red Sox obviously never had a championship. For 86 years, they didn't have a championship until 2004. And Bruins, we'd watch hockey too. Like my family was just all Boston sports. And so I was, and I am still.
And when did you find fantasy football?
Fantasy football, I didn't discover until college. So Syracuse. So 1988, a guy who I'm still in a league with to this day, Bruce Jacobson, started this league, and we all started playing. I remember the first round, first pick I ever made was Jerry Rice.
Oh.
0 RB build right from the get-go.
And is that league still going on?
A version of it still exists. So I dropped out from that league around 1996, right around the time my acting career took off. Mm-hmm. And my wife then just, we were living together, girlfriend, boyfriend living together. She was the one who was like, fantasy football is kind of taking up a lot of your time. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And I need to focus on my career here. And so I took a break from 96 to about 2010.
And so going from playing fantasy football then and then coming into it in 2010 and starting over, how different is it from when it was when you started?
Oh my gosh. I was like, whoa, everything's online. Like we can just do this. I mean, it's so much easier than it used to be. I know a lot of people say that. Like we used to look at the, what was USA Today? You'd get USA Today, look at the box score, figure out your points.
And now it's just super, super right there. You don't have to do any of the work.
We're so spoiled. If it doesn't, figure out our points within the second, we're upset.
Yes. I'm like tweeting at the account at ESPN. Why aren't you working?
FanDuel's down.
Oh no. Come on. Our problems now. I don't know. Okay, so you were talking about, you stopped when your acting started taking off. So what is like the 1.01 of your acting career that you think is like the big thing that, everybody knows you for?
I would say it's probably that thing you do because it was my first movie. It was a big role. I mean, even my aunt and uncle, when they saw the movie, they said, "Hey, you have a pretty good part in that." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." I think that's the one everybody knows. So That Thing You Do. That was the one that I booked in 1995.
Yeah, 1995.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember watching that. I don't want to make you feel bad, but I was 12. No, but I remember watching that movie constantly in our house. Like that movie was one of those staples go-to movies. Everybody in the family could watch it. And so, I can quote it with my sister today. It's fun. So when you were doing that experience and you were talking about how you played trumpet, was that something that you brought to their attention? And did you play drums prior to that as well?
No, never really played drums. I could twirl a drumstick because, I just looked cool. So I learned how to do that early on. My friends were drummers. I was in band. I was in marching band, jazz band, all that stuff. I think in an earlier life, I might have been a drummer. I think I always was interested in doing it, but trumpet was the one. So I played that. And then on my resume, on the back of my headshot, when I was going out on auditions, on the back is list of like things I'd been in, and special skills is a little section at the bottom of an actor's resume. And Tom Hanks flipped it over when I was auditioning for him, and he said, "Okay, under special skills here, it says trumpet. Is that true? Or I'm an actor. I know that could be false." And I was like, haha, no, that's true. And he said, "Okay, great. Then you have some sense of rhythm. Moving on." And we did the audition scene, and then, he cast me, but he also said, I wanted to cast actors first, musicians second. I just took drum lessons then, like 24/7, 7 days a week, 40 hours. I just poured it on. Like I needed to just learn. I wanted to look good. I wanted to not look fake. I was so excited that was my job, to learn to play drums. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm getting paid for this. This is amazing. And that was it. And I learned all the songs in the movie. You don't really like hear me drumming. You hear some professional drummer has recorded the track, and then I'm just kind of like drum syncing along.
The cast, absolutely amazing. Well, air drumming, of course, but
forgot the term.
Well,
we all do it.
We all do it. I mean, we're just rocking out in our car, at a red light.
Is there a drum solo you think you know note for note?
No, I don't think there is. I can just pretend. Isn't there like the bum 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 bum? Yeah,
yes.
There you
go. Phil Collins in the air tonight.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. I mean, drums, doing the air drums, doing the air guitar, all that stuff when you're a kid. I think that was another thing that kind of appealed, that you guys were like, up there playing instruments and stuff. And we were like, heck yeah. And I don't know how much of an impact that movie had on like kids joining, bands and a lot.
Apparently a lot. A lot of people have reached out to me and told me that they started playing the drums because of Guy Patterson. And I am so honored. I'm so sorry to the parents for the noise, but I'm so happy that it's beyond me, like really, like beyond words, like how cool that is to be someone to inspire musicians. Like, what? I love that. I love music. I'm so happy that I was a part of that. I'm so proud to be part of a movie that so many people like, for crying out loud.
Yes, because I mean, I'm sure every time you go on a podcast or an interview, people want to talk to you about it, and people like.
Fine. I love it.
Yeah, I love it, and the fact that it was like the first big role for you and everything, and you had that incredible cast, and you were talking about Tom Hanks flipping over. What was that experience like? At that very beginning when it first sunk in that this is happening.
Like I said, it was just so cool that was my job. That was one thing. I think also because I was so freaked out and excited and could have easily just like collapsed from excitement. I was glad that I had something to latch onto, the drumming. Mm-hmm. And I throughout the whole process, that was such a great thing to have to latch onto, just drumming it, right. And then the acting just kind of came secondary. And Tom Hanks said that I just want you to, the words to come right off your face. And I learned a lot as an actor from Tom Hanks, which is probably one of the coolest things that I've ever said. It's ever come out of my mouth.
I mean, I don't know how you could top that. That is super, like, I can't even imagine like being able to say that.
And he was my hero, and he was my absolute acting hero. And so all the stars aligned, and I couldn't believe it. My mom said, "Can you believe it's great that you got a great role in a movie, but can you believe that it's Tom Hanks?" I was like, I know.
I mean, I don't know how. You know what? More props to you, because I don't think that I would have been able to like survive that situation. So,
no, of course you would. Of course you would. And I had this out of body moment where a voice in my head said, "Look, you're going to make mistakes. Just let it happen. You have permission to make mistakes." And the whole process was great. And it was like, it was this great feeling, and it was also like scary. But then I met Steve Zahn, and we became best friends. And it was just. Tom was great and instrumental in all the things that I like would think of in terms of film acting, and to this day we're buds. Like Ethan and Jonathan and Steve and we're all going to go do Erie Wonders Day at the Erie Seawolves ballpark. It's Labor Day weekend. It's going to be so cool. We're gonna throw out the first pitch. The team is going to be in shirts that say Wonders on them. They're going to be Erie Wonders for the day. It's going to be crazy.
Wow.
So yeah, look at that.
What
Like
what a promotion. Come on, guys in Dallas. Let's get in this mood. I need it. So you were talking about the permission to make mistakes, and that kind of goes along with this podcast is also something that helps people that are breaking into the fantasy football industry or want to write, want to be in front of the camera or behind the microphone. And they look to it for some sort of advice that other people were kind of went through the same stuff that they went through. So the permission to make mistakes, this goes for all kinds of media. For sure. The podcasting world, if you're writing, it's going to happen. There's always going to be those bumps. You just learn to get over them.
For sure. I mean, most professions, I think when you're facing something like that, it is good to tell yourself you're going to make mistakes. Maybe not if you're like a bomb diffuser, maybe that's not a good one for that.
Maybe not.
You need to tighten it up a little bit, but for everything else, I think you got to cut yourself some slack. And
also being that you were in front of the camera for and for a movie, being on that huge project, and you had a lot of emotions going on. You had a lot of nerves, probably. What do you have any tips or tricks that kind of help you with that, or do you just go with it and hope for the best?
I think that what I learned on that movie and through the process of acting and being on set throughout my career now, 25 plus year career, that it's some form of it is like meditation. Some form of it is like a Zen. It's like, okay, so it started on that movie. I was clearly like going all different ways. I was 25-year-old and my brain was just like bouncing off of everything like a pinball. And Tom Hanks saw that. Like I would see some grip hauling equipment, and where I came from, where I grew up in that little town in Massachusetts, if you saw somebody lifting something heavy, you go help them. So I'd like go over there and start helping this guy, and he'd be like, whoa, dude, no, like you're in your union, I'm in my union. There's no helping. And Tom Hanks took me aside and he said, just do your job, and everyone has a job, and we're all this big thing working together, but everyone is a little cog in a big machine. And as long as everyone just like worries about their job, we're good. Because he could just see me like going, ah, and had never been on a big set like that before. And so I was like, cool. Like he gave me permission there to do that. And he was like, to all us actors in the Wonders, he said, just know your lines, be on time, and we'll be good. And I think I've taken that with me to every film. Like, okay, I have one job. I'm the head of the department of my character, and my job is to know my lines, be on time, bring some ideas, but just be the best at what I do and try not to get distracted. And I think I've used that throughout my career and have found that through that I'm on set doing some form of, recently my wife and I during the pandemic took up actual meditation with a person who does that, like a guru. And while we were talking about it and learning it, I'm like, wait a minute, I do this. I do this during the day at work. Like I have to like breathe, come back to center, realize there are things that are not in my control. Even though I'm feeling stressed out about it, I got to let it go. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh. So I think that that's something maybe kind of what we're talking about here and what applies to other people's jobs.
For sure. And how do you balance like everything? Because having, being on set and having a career in, with your acting, and, you have your family life, and you have the things that you like to do on the side, like playing fantasy football, which is something that I bring up with guests when they come on, is like, how do you make it so that you don't burn out?
You lie about the number of leagues you're actually in.
There you go.
The first one. Well, I think I remember when I used to think 3 leagues was a lot. So now I'm probably in, I think last year I was in 9, maybe this year I'll be in 10. And that's still not much compared to some people. I know that there are guys guys and gals who are in several leagues. And I think that you're doing the research anyway. And then you just kind of like customize each, your information for your team, right? Is that what you do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it's every league is different. Every team is different. And you have to kind of what works for one's not going to work for the other based on, so many different things. Which,
Right.
What's your favorite type of league to play in?
Well, I'm in mostly redraft leagues.
Okay.
And I think that even within that realm of redraft, I have some that are just straight up redraft, draft a new team each year, snake draft, very basic, especially the one that I'm the commissioner of, that it's like me, my father-in-law, family, friends, like very, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not a lot of pros. And then I'm in like a dynasty league with like Rich Rebar, JJ Zachary's, like all those guys. So then I'm in like, I'm in over my head here. But then I'm in leagues that are kind of more of a mix, and some of them are keeper leagues. Some of them are guillotine. I always do guillotine leagues these days. I like mixing it up, but redraft mostly.
Redraft. Yeah, I really do have a soft spot still for redraft. I know a lot of people are like, move on to dynasty, but I think you can balance it out and do them all.
Look, I'm in the second year of my dynasty league, of the only dynasty league I've ever been involved with, and it's super fun. So last year we did our dynasty league startup, and then this year we did my first rookie. That's not their first. All these pros, and I've already made a big trade. Do you do dynasty?
I do. I'm in a few dynasty leagues, 3 dynasty leagues. Yeah, I'm in 2 with, I know, Dynasty Outhouse Russ. You were on his show. That's my homie. I won one of his leagues last year. So, but yeah. So I'm in 3 dynasty. Not to brag, but I like to kind of hold that over him.
Heck yeah.
But yeah.
So he gave me some advice recently on my first trade that I ever made in Dynasty, and that was this. So tell me what you think of this trade. Okay. So it's a super flex league. Mm-hmm. And my quarterbacks are Tua and Fitz Magic, because I just had him as a backup last year. But now, so they start for 2 different teams, and then behind them I have nobody. I have like Dwayne Haskins, Andy Dalton. So I needed another quarterback. So I traded Rashad Bateman and a 2022 first for Kirk Cousins, his backup Mond, and Gabriel Davis.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right now you didn't have anything. So giving up that 2020 second or that 2022 first.
Now, I came in second in the league last year. I have a really strong team, I think, again this year. So I think my first round pick is not going to be an early one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting Kirk Cousins, who's solid. He's a solid quarterback. You know what you're getting with Kirk Cousins for the most part. Like, you're going to get it.
Yeah, because look, if something happened to Fitz, something happens to Tua, it doesn't work out. I need somebody like that.
Right on. And what did Russ tell you when you told him?
Well, he was the one. So I told him what my team was, and I said I'm looking for a quarterback, and he was like, "Well, who has Kirk Cousins? Because he's a guy.
There you go.
He's a solid guy you can kind of get for cheap." So I traded with the Podfather, Matt Kelly, and I know Matt Kelly likes those rookies and those development players. So that's what he was happy to do it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, what do you think about having to know the people that you're playing with? Like you said, you knew he likes rookies. So do you think it's important to know the people that you're playing with and what they like and don't like?
Oh, for sure. Especially when you're drafting, it's good to know who's picking in front of you, what they're, what they want behind you or whatever. When you're, like he's probably going to go for this player, or he's a Bears fan. He's going to grab A-Rob if I don't, that kind of thing. I think absolutely that's all information that you need. And it was helpful to know. And Podfather, he and I have tried to make deals before. He's one of the only guys in that league right now that is actively trying to trade. So he was also good to trade with because of that. Yeah.
And that's why I like trading with Russ, because he always likes to trade. So the problem is we don't value players the same, so we can never get anything done. But it's still fun. It's still fun to try. I mean, one of his trade addicts leagues. I don't know if he told you anything about those. Yeah.
They start one every year.
They had been. I don't know if they still. I know that every year it's like a million people are like, "Let me in. I want to be in one." And
wow,
I just happened to get in the 9th one, so I'm like, okay.
And they're all dynasty leagues.
Yeah. Wow. And he's a whole different beast. The people that have that commission so many leagues, I can't imagine. I commission my home, and it's the home league is a redraft and we do it in person. Like, it's really not the crazy stuff that they have to do. So
Same. We always try to do a live draft. It's the best way.
it is the best. Sell people on that, because some people have never done a live draft before.
It's so easy to do it online, and because of the pandemic, most of us had to over Zoom do it online, which was fine. Hey, that was fun too. But the one that I'm commissioner of, I always try to do it live. Everybody comes to. There's only one team that lives in New York. Everybody else lives in LA. So it's we just try to fly that one guy out. We always do it Labor Day weekend. Always do it on Labor Day.
Okay.
It's like if you know what date is always going to be on, you can kind of just set your calendar to it.
Yeah.
And so we make a big board. We always pick jokey pictures of each team, each guy, and it's amazing.
Yeah, they're real fun, and it sucks because a couple of people moved away and stuff. So now we're having to, like my sister doesn't live here anymore, and like there's just a bunch of stuff. So we have to try to set it up via video chat, and it's just not.
Yeah, you have to have somebody sitting there on a computer.
It's crazy, but we'll figure it out. So you're also in the Scott Fish Bowl.
Yeah.
And how did you find out about the Scott Fish Bowl in the first place?
I don't really know. I think because of all the people I follow, I probably was getting pretty jealous that it was something I wasn't involved in.
Right.
And JJ Zacharyson would be like, are you in that? Are you in that? And I'm like, no, man, I don't know. Like, how do I get there? And he's like, oh, I'm going to talk to Scott. So then Scott, I think that's how I got into JJ probably.
So is this your second year doing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you and I met through Scott Fish Bowl, because we were both picking 7th, right? We
were. And we were in that chat together.
Yes.
Which was, super awesome. That's how we met. And then, the rest is history.
That's right. And I really love it. I love that it's for charity. I love that so many people are in it.
Right.
Yeah, it's really fun. It happens at a perfect time of year when it's kind of like everything else is kind of slowed way down in terms of sports.
And what division are you in this year?
Well, I jokingly pitched, because I always say this when people ask me who my favorite band is, I always say Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters. It's another That Thing You Do reference. And so Scott made the division Captain Geach. So I'm in the Captain Geach and the Shrimp Shack Shooters division proudly. I'm in there with what's his real first name?
Russ.
Russ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, Dynasty Outhouse,
Dynasty Outhouse. So I'm in there with him, with Russ, and with a bunch of other people, and we had a really good chat going. I also found that everybody who picked 5th, because I was a 5th pick this year, and there was a huge 105 chat that was equally entertaining and fun. Yeah. Talking strategy. That was really great.
And how crazy was it that strategies were so different in each league?
It was crazy. I think that everybody picking 5 that I was talking to was either going to take Kelsey or one of the big 5 quarterbacks. And I don't know, Kyler got really hot right around Scott Fish Bowl time. So Kyler started going before Josh Allen. So a lot of 105ers got Josh Allen, like me. And then it was all about who you're getting on the way back.
Right.
And I just went Tannehill. I just went double quarterback just to switch it up. I normally wouldn't do that. I just did it for Scott Fish.
Yeah. And I did it for Scott Fish last year. This year. Yeah. So it would have worked out well for me if, Dak Prescott didn't go down, and if Russell Wilson played as well at the end, all kinds of stuff. So I also want to know about the Scott Fish Bowl, about how have you ever done a long draft like that, like a email draft like that before, or was this your first time doing it?
I think that Scott Fish Bowl and that Dynasty League that I'm in both did the slow. So that was the first time I did that, and I did it for 2 leagues. And then I started a league called the Secret Shadow League that was secret, so that no one. This is one of those leagues that you hide from the wife. And I did that because it was the pandemic and I was like, there's nothing going on. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just do that. Let's just do this. And so we did it again this year because all those guys from that league were like, I want to do that again. That was awesome. Like I loved getting my email that I was up, and I loved thinking about. I was like, all right, let's do it. And then we expanded it to 14 teams this year. So I'm in 3 leagues that draft over email now.
Wow. Well, but that's pretty cool. I had never done that before either until the Scott Fish Bowl, and then learning a whole new, site is kind of
MFL.
Yeah, a learning curve, but at the same time, there's so many customizations they can do and everything else. I understand there's some people are yay and some people are nay, and to me, I'm just indifferent,
I can see that. I mean, you can figure it out.
You can figure it out.
Yeah. It's not as it's not that it's not user friendly. It's just not as like, what's the word?
Like, I don't know, clean. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to describe it either. It's not mobile friendly, really.
No. Unless you get the platinum app.
Unless you get the platinum app, right? But I'm okay with that. I do everything on my phone anyway, so whatever.
For sure.
What's
again? We're complaining about how easy
things,
and not easy fantasy football is now.
The silliest things. So yes. If you're complaining about any of this stuff,
just forget it.
Take it back a little bit. I'm trying to do it too. It's hard because I love to complain. So what are you gonna do?
Remember, you're just a cog in a big machine.
So the community that is a huge community is the fantasy football community, especially on Twitter. Did you know that the fantasy community was so insane on the size?
No, in fact, here's how I came to it. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, I came back to fantasy football in 2010 and came in last in that league. That was and it wasn't even my college buddies immediately. It was the guys that I would play regular Wednesday night poker with in New York. We all kind of started to move out and away, to the suburbs or to LA or wherever. And so one of the guys was like, well, let's do fantasy football. At least we'll have that to talk about. So Big Money Wednesday was the name of the poker game. And so now we have Big Money Wednesday football. And there's 10 or 12 of us in there. I love it. I've been doing it since 2010. It's an auction keeper league. And my point was that was the one that brought me back. And I came in last because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to auction. I didn't know who to auction. I had been out of the game. I hadn't even really been following football much. I had little kids.
Right.
And the Patriots were winning. So I would just kind of like catch them in the playoffs. I was being real, whatever. My team always wins. Like, I was like the playoffs guy. I really was like, so like who's any good right now? and I just, so my team sucked. But it immediately got the fever for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, well, losing sucks. I'm going to be good next year. Like I'm ready. And that's when I started looking out on the internet. I have to say one of the first things I found was Sigmund Bloom and a podcast that he was doing with Matt Waldman, where it was like this. It was like, I was barely scratching the surface of internet fantasy advice. I clicked on, I don't even know how I found it. Honest to God, must have come up in a Google search. I clicked on it, listened to like 1 minute of this podcast and heard people talking football and was like, this is what I need. And so I just listened to that. I remember laying in bed, my wife sleeping next to me, and just go like episode after episode of Sigmund Bloom talking about football. And I was like, this is music to my ears. I need this poured into my soul, injected into my veins. This is what I want. And I walked into that auction that year and drafted an amazing team. I just knew who to take. And I was like, all right, this works. So then I just kind of dug more. I really responded to JJ in the late round quarterback and his theory. I was immediately like, yep, that's how I'm going to win. That's how I'm going to do it. and I kept listening to Sigmund and love his On the Couch series. Became a Living the Stream fan. Obviously, Denny Carter and JJ just cracked me up. I was like, oh my God, I love these guys. And then I also just started following everybody else. It's from there, it just
kept
grew and grew
going.
and grew. Yeah.
That's great. There are so many fantasy football accounts, websites,
Yeah.
podcasts, and it's awesome. It's awesome that there's people that I don't even know about yet that are out there that like have
There's
all
so
this
many.
advice and have all this knowledge. Like,
Yep.
yeah. And so it's really cool to be able to find that and then just have it right there at your fingertips. Like again, you wouldn't have been able to do that back in the day. You can get right now, just like boom. Short tweet telling you so and so didn't practice today. Dak Prescott didn't practice today. So there you go.
So people are going crazy
People are
because of
going
that.
crazy. Yeah.
And
How do you feel about this time of the year when training camp's starting up and all the rumors and speculations happening?
well, now that I've drafted 3 teams already, I'm kind of freaking out because the DeAndre Hopkins tweet about
Yeah.
him maybe retiring. I was like, wait a minute.
Whoa.
That would be devastating. The Rodgers news is huge. Yeah, if you already have drafted some teams, you're definitely sweating all the breaking news. And that's why most of the casual leagues I'm in wouldn't dare draft this early. No way. I mean, they don't. Labor Day is almost too early for those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, we need it to be the Wednesday before that Thursday night game. We need it. So
totally.
oh,
Which
man.
we've done that league actually. The first live draft we did was in Vegas. We all
Okay.
went to Vegas. We got a conference room and we all drafted it on Thursday afternoon of the first game. And then we walked down to the casino and watched the Thursday night game of that season. And it was the Peyton Manning, Orange Julius 3-touchdown. It was that season that the Broncos had Peyton and were just like an offensive juggernaut.
Oh, that was a good season. That was it was very fun. That was a very fun season.
Yeah.
So you're a Patriots fan. You were talking about how you guys had won for so long, and now we have what's going on now, which is something that you're not as used to, because of winning for so long, and your quarterback that the GOAT moved on and won a Super. I mean, all the things you already know, but like.
Yeah, it's it's like you break up with this person and they go off and they get married to some millionaire and you're just like watching them drive around town in a hot car. Like what? Yeah, I definitely it was that moment where you're like, okay, was it Belichick? Was it Brady? Was it the combination of the two? We're gonna see. And you're just like, oh my gosh, no, Brady's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, which I think we knew, but now it's
pretty obvious, yeah.
Pretty obvious. And, Belichick, we'll see.
Right.
They had a rough year. They had a lot of guys opt out for COVID. I don't know. I don't know if he knows. I don't know if he knows how to rebuild. I hope so. It's starting to come, like, now that they're maybe not going to win as much, it's also going to start to be an unattractive place for players to go. I think a lot of players thought, I want to play for a winning team, I want to play for the Patriots. But now I think they realize that culture is kind of, they're a little rough on players up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very interesting to watch to see what's going on. And I know that last year when I had my other podcast that I had started and you had come on, we were talking about the whole Cam Newton news because that had come out where he's, the starter now for the Patriots. How do you feel about the quarterback situation going into 2021?
Well, I was very happy that they drafted Mac Jones. I mean, I really thought that he was a great prospect for them. And I think he fits that scheme as well as any, if you're going to follow in the footsteps of Brady, if you're going to do the McDaniels offense that he had for Brady, Mac Jones looks great for that. Perfect almost. And so we'll see. We'll see how long it takes to develop him. And hopefully that all works out. I think Cam Newton's a good placeholder.
Yeah.
I know he looked good at the beginning of last year. Then he got COVID, and then he clearly was affected by that. And he's slowing down. He doesn't have an accurate arm, so it's gonna be tough. They don't have any star receivers.
No, I mean they did.
Yeah,
it's very interesting to see the Patriots roster and be like, there's not really anybody on that roster that I want on my fantasy team.
If they had just gotten Jonnu Smith or just got Hunter Henry, you'd be like,
yes,
oh, I want one of those guys. But they got both.
They got both. And so that really muddles everything. Because I was huge Jonnu Smith fan last year. I'm going to trade a third, blah, blah, blah. Give you all the bag to get him on my roster. And now it's like, really?
And it still might work out because he's still such a great athlete and he still could be a star. It kind of a lot more things have to work out correctly. They are going to have a good run game, and Damian Harris is probably set up to have a nice role.
And I think I didn't even think of him. He could be one of those guys that's sneaky that you don't think about.
Yeah. And if they actually do bring back a great defense and they do control games, then they are going to run the ball. And, he probably isn't a bad guy to have as your, flex, maybe RB2.
Is there any player who's done you wrong in fantasy football? Like you had him on your roster maybe more than once?
Never. No, I always pick guys that do great.
Right, everybody's great. Is there one guy that you're like, man, you've done me wrong multiple times?
Never been burned, Casey. Never been burned. No.
You know what? I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Kidding.
You should have your own fantasy podcast.
Yeah. That's right. I should. The Never Been Burned podcast.
Never Been Burned podcast.
That's
there you
right.
go.
That first year that I started listening to Sigmund and Matt Waldman, God bless, those guys are awesome. I love them very much, but they were pumping up Brandon Lloyd to the Patriots. And I was like, boom, and I sold the farm to get Brandon Lloyd, and he was just the biggest bust. And I was just like burned. There are guys who are perennially, but that's kind of a specific situation. I think there are guys who are perennially great, but I just never trust them at come draft time. Like Amari Cooper. Like I never draft him, and I always should. And I always he passes by
too.
And then he has a great season.
Yeah, I do it too. It's like because he has those games where he just disappears. So like every season there's those games where he's either hurt or whatever. And then
I think so, but then he always has a great season. But he has never burned me. He's never burned me. I would say I've been burned by let's see. I think Russell Wilson probably burned me one year.
It happens.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But what's the worst? I'm trying to think of the worst case. I'm in the league that I am in with my college buddies is a really deep roster. You start 2 quarterback, 3 running back, 4 wide receiver, tight end, and a kicker. Wow. And it's a pretty competitive league, and the stakes are not too small. They're kind of large. And so you got to win that league. It's important to at least make the playoffs in that league. And there's a lot of bragging rights. And I feel like in that league, I've definitely made some bad picks. And you know what? I picked Connor and Thomas 2 years ago.
Okay.
And got burned by both of them. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy how hard it is to like? Oh,
not Thomas. I should have picked Thomas. Sorry. Thomas. I picked somebody, some wide receiver who burned me. I can't remember who it was. Maybe Juju or I can't remember.
Could have been. I feel like that happens every year that there's like this one and then you forget about it and somebody else burns you the next year. But
that's right.
There's always 1 or 2 of those guys.
Always. Who's it going to be this year, Casey?
I don't know. I think Saquon. I mean, I know he already burned people, but in a different way. But I don't know. I can't draft him where he's going.
Perfect. He burned me last year. Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
And it's just just what happens, but at the same time.
Yeah. David Johnson, Saquon Barkley. Yeah. Those are 2 big first round busts for me in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's happened. It's crazy with the talent and everything, how that happened. I can't even wrap my head around it sometimes.
So where does that make you go in terms of this year's draft? Where do you think you're going to be at the beginning? Let's say you're picking 5th.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Saquon's staring you right in the face. Mm-hmm. Are you taking him?
No.
Okay, let's say that it goes McCaffrey. Let's say it goes McCaffrey, Cook. Okay. Somebody decides to go crazy and grab Kelsey, and then somebody grabs Kamara. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now who do you take?
Okay. Is it super flex or is it just 1 QB?
1 QB.
Okay. Who do I take? I don't know. All of a sudden, I'm on this Zeke's going to be good train.
Okay.
And so, as much as I don't want to be like, at 5, would I take Zeke? I
Right?
don't know,
Would you
because
take Derrick Henry there?
yeah, more so if it's a PPR league or not a PPR, a standard league. But
Let's say it's PPR. Would you take Tyreek Hill over Derrick Henry?
okay, yes, because for some reason, if Tyreek Hill's staring at me, I have to draft him. So
Okay. All right, there you go.
boom, and
And then do you wait and
I
come and
wait. I'll
see
come
which
around and
running backs are there in
see
the
who's
second?
still there. Yeah, I used to just it's got to be a running back in the first round, but I feel like somebody can drop to the second round that is going to put up good numbers as a running back one. Like even last year we saw it. Like David or who. See, now I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden.
David Montgomery?
David Montgomery. There we go. I had David Johnson in my head because you said his name, and then I got it. I was like, not him.
Too many Davids.
Too many Davids. But yeah, David Montgomery was a guy that I got in the Scott Fish Bowl last year, like in the fourth round or whatever, like fifth round. And it's like,
did you make the playoffs in Scott Fish Bowl last year?
I did.
Woo! Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I lost early, but
yeah, I made it. I think I made it further than I had. God, it's hard for me because the last few years I've been making it to the playoffs, but then I immediately you're in the wild card or whatever, and then you're like, or whatever, even there, and then you're like, man, I was so close. I could have.
I was so close. I had Kamara, and Josh Allen were my big cornerstone players, and had I made it past the round that I lost in, I probably would have done really well because Kamara had that big week.
That would have been awesome. Then I'd be like, look at that dude. You got to come on my podcast. Instead, we had to wait a little bit, but
here we are.
Here we are. So I want to talk a little bit more fantasy football and like just how much it's changed. And now that we're in 2021 and there's, like you said, you do guillotine leagues now, and there's daily fantasy, and there's all these different ways you can play fantasy football. Is there any one that you're like, nah, I don't touch playing that often, or I would like to play it, but maybe I've never
I don't think there's anything that I've left by the wayside. And if anything, it's just I gain a new thing each year on top of the things I'm already doing. And it's been like, okay, so redraft and then FanDuel, and then there's survivor pools. There's the guillotine leagues now. And they're all fun. There's a FanDuel group that I guess it's kind of like I'm the commissioner of this group in the way that I'm the one who always sets up the contest. So every week I set up a FanDuel contest. I send the link to like 25 people, and the first 19 get in with me, in addition to me, because I think they only do 20 people max contests, private contests. And it's weekly, and it's like almost all my buds that are doing fantasy, we all agree that FanDuel contest, that weekly FanDuel contest, is almost as important as your redraft league and how it does. I don't know why, because you sweat it. You sweat that.
You really do. I love that. You're watching the games. You're watching your stats. You're watching the points, and you're like, I'm gonna get I can't. But I also can't tell you how many times I was like, I'm gonna win, and I get like a little too cocky, and I tweet out that, oh yeah, he has to have this many points to beat me, and then that happens, and then it's like, really, you think I would have learned my lesson by now?
But that's what's fun. Like, so there's all these added fun things, and the guillotine league thing is super fun because I just happen to be in a good group where the guy who runs that one is like a TV writer, and there's just a lot of jokey people in that group. They all get on the emails, and it's pretty funny. I like that, and that's half of it for me. I just want to read great emails.
Yeah.
The people in my league that I'm the commissioner of, I'm like, look, I don't care, win or lose. It's about this camaraderie, and it's about that stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because all the leagues that I'm in, like the way that we communicate, we all have chats. We all, sometimes we video chat, sometimes we do this, we do that, and the importance of that camaraderie. How does that add an extra layer of fun besides just I know you just described a lot of that, but why is it important? Why should people be looking for that in their leagues?
Because it's connecting you to other human beings on a regular basis, and we all need connection. It's better than the alternative. It's better than talking to nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, when that poker game kind of faded away because we all went in different directions, we had fantasy football. You could be spread all over the globe and still play fantasy football. And there are members of that league that live in Europe. I mean, there's like, it's a way to stay in touch with friends.
It really is. And then the more leagues you get in, the more friends you're making.
You make new friends. And that is exactly what's happened for sure. It's incredible. I pick up leagues sometimes when I go work in like different locations. Now I'm in a Canadian, like, it's all Canadian guys who love NFL.
That is cool.
oh God. And it's a keeper league. I'm like, oh, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
And the exchange rate, please don't get me started.
Oh man, I can't even.
Not even worth my time.
So with fantasy football, and like you've been hopping on a bunch of fantasy football related podcasts lately. We were talking about that earlier. I don't know if it was on or off, but it's pretty awesome to see you like get on there and start, chatting it up with everybody else. And one thing that I've noticed about when you do interviews, whether it's you're on a podcast for fantasy football or it's one that you're doing with just like a late night host or whoever, you keep the conversation going. And that's what is super rad about when you're on like a podcast with somebody and you ask them questions, because you genuinely want to know, what they're thinking. So being on these podcasts lately, like how has that experience been? Because I know it's not something that you were doing like all the time, and now you're like everywhere.
Well, yeah, because it became such a huge hobby for me and such a huge passion. I love it. I love getting in there and chopping it up and learning new stuff. And I want to talk about all this stuff. Like, I want to know who you're picking at the 105 if that's the situation. I want to know what everybody else is reading. Like, where are you? How do you feel about zero RB or modified RB? And we kind of just touched on it. You always like to go running back first, but like lately, what have you been doing?
Lately, I just kind of go with my gut with who I think is the best player available. If it's super flex, more often it's going to be a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And if it's not a super flex league, which I don't think I'm really in any leagues that it's just one quarterback, but like if it is, for the most part, I would like to go running back there because I feel like wide receiver in later rounds, you're still getting good value on these players that can put up wide receiver 1 numbers.
Well, I agree. But I also kind of have like been adopting this regardless of the format, this idea that it's important to get your running back 1 and get it somebody who's, kind of guaranteed to have like a big ceiling.
Right.
I think as best as as little risk as possible. But then after you get that one guy in the first or second round, I really think it's important to wait. I don't know. I think you can like take a shotgun blast at your RB2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really can't.
Because all those guys I've noticed that I've done a bunch of, that's another underdog, best ball.
Oh, yeah.
Something I hadn't done consistently. And then the last few years I've really been getting in there.
It's all really fun. Yeah.
It's really fun too. And just to practice drafting. And on those, a lot of those I've just been, mixing and matching different strategies. But waiting, when you see in the later rounds, all these running backs are available and you're like, I don't need running backs. I already have so many. I need a wide receiver. And there's no wide receivers. Makes you think like, man, wide receiver early. Good ones early.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's what I think.
Because I always think back too about what starting running back did I get off the waiver wire last year, right? Because it always happens, right? And always happens. And so I'm like, okay, I'll take Robinson or whatever,
James Robinson, great example.
Robinson. Yeah. So
Darrell Henderson, even Cam Akers at one point in a lot of leagues was on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
We didn't know what role he was going to have. After a while, you were just like, oh, I guess they're not going to really like start him. They're not going to give him that workload everybody thought. And, then he exploded.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how that works. And you can take a shot on somebody late and they hit like that and you feel like $1 million. You feel like you did something
totally
like you were the one who made that happen.
Or Jeff Wilson, like you started Jeff Wilson and he had you're like in that first quarter, he had 2 touchdowns. You're like, oh my God, I'm a genius. Yeah.
Have you ever forgotten to take somebody out of your lineup and then they end up like going off? Let's just say they end up doing well. How about that? Like you were
Oh,
going
yeah.
to switch it and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to set my lineup. And then like the guy goes off or like your quarterback throws like 5 touchdowns and takes 2 in himself or whatever. You know?
You're like, I meant to do that. I meant to do that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that's rare.
But like not setting your lineup in general, have you forgotten to set your lineup and then like what
Totally.
how is that when that happens? What's that feeling like?
It's the bad feeling.
Yeah.
That is not a good feeling. Yeah.
Mm.
In the league that I'm the commissioner of, we just came up with a new rule. If you because there are guys in that league who, even though the site that we do it on lets you start an incomplete lineup, and they'll still go ahead with the game. But the guys in the league are like, that's not, you have to fill your lineup. You have to start a roster. And I'm like, well, and so we voted on it, like whether we should have a penalty for that or not.
Yeah.
Because some guys were like, look, it doesn't matter. Like the site doesn't care if we do or not. So who cares? And some guys were like, I don't have time to check. And they're like, all right, well, so we voted.
You don't have time to check.
And the majority of the guys were like, you should be held accountable.
Yeah.
And so now it used to be that the loser each season had to foot the bill for the restaurant at the beginning of the season. We always do this rules and regs meeting every year. We just had it. Rules and regs meeting is just a way to get together, talk about the upcoming season, about if we're going to change any rules. We also pick our draft order out of a hat.
Oh, yeah.
Which is super fun. You get to find out what your draft pick is going to be. And then we just drink beer and play darts. And the loser from the previous season pays the bill. And it's not small. It's not a small bill. It's at a brewery, so it's not like a steakhouse.
Yeah,
But it's not a small bill. And so this year, if you don't fill your lineup, every time you don't fill your lineup, your name goes into a lottery that will be drawn at the end of the season, and that person whose name is drawn will split the. This is a lot. This is a complex rule, but
I like it.
That person will split the bill at the rules and reg meeting with the guy who lost. Because I'm now looking at I saw the bill this past weekend. I was like, "Ooh, sucks to lose this league."
I don't want to do that. The motivation is there to win, or at least not get last place. So yeah, yes.
Which is what I think that's important. I think that's because if you're in the playoff hunt and the last place guy is still fighting, and he's hopefully fighting your competition to get into the playoff, you want everyone to still be trying.
Yeah, I hate that. That's the worst part of my home league is I've got like a couple. Sorry, guys, if you're listening to this, which you're probably not, set a lineup. It's not hard. Don't tell me that it's hard because, like you said earlier, you've got it all right there. You don't have to do all this extra work. It's so easy. Just press a couple buttons, boom, submit a lineup. So I'm like messaging somebody today. I'm like, are you still going to be in this league? Question mark. And then I'm not getting a response. I'm like, I'm going to take that as nah, because you can't set a lineup or text me back. But hey.
I know.
So I do I like the rules and the regulations. I like I like what you were doing there. That's great to keep people accountable. And
keep everybody invested. Keep it fun, but also keep it competitive.
Keep it fun and I need more friends in my life that want to do stuff like that. Go to a brewery and do that and sit down and go. I need more people in my life like that. I'm going to the Fantasy Football Expo. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I have. You're going?
I'm going.
So jealous. Send me pictures.
I will definitely do that. It's going to be a blast. I'm going to do that draft night out thing where you get it's a live draft that they're going to have the day before the convention where there's like a ton of live drafts going on. And I think they're doing at a brewery. I think they're doing it at a brewery.
Oh, cool. So there'll be with boards and stickers
and all kinds of people in the fantasy industry and fans and whoever's there. And so, yeah, it's going to be dope.
Oh my gosh. That sounds so much fun. Oh,
I
know. I've been talking to people about that. I mean, I can't go because of work, but I would love to go to something like that. I'd be like a kid in a candy store. Who are you going to meet that you haven't met in person that you're excited to meet?
Oh my God, there's so many people I haven't met in person that I want to meet. Scott Fish is going to be there.
Oh yeah, Scott Fish.
I want to meet him. Bob Lung is the guy throwing it. He's somebody I want to meet. Like I've had both of them on the podcast. Awesome. Russ, Dynasty Outhouse, obviously he's like my top tier. I need to meet you because he's just been a real good sounding board. He's been real helpful and
awesome.
Good friend. It's really cool to be able. I mean, there's so many. There's like Steffi Smalls, like probably half the people that have been on this thing. I don't know who all is going to be in attendance that you may or may not know, but I know those are some people that I'm really excited to meet. I mean, anybody that's been on this podcast that is going to be there, I'm definitely going to run up to. I don't know who all is going to be there and who's not, but and I look really forward to just meeting a bunch of people that maybe I don't even know, like have heard of, and it's going to be a cool networking kind of thing, So,
for sure. Oh, absolutely. I would imagine
tons of friends. So, looking to just like see, I'll be like, tell my wife, look, because she's going to go with me for the weekend, but I don't think she's going to actually go to the expo. I think she's just going to come to the draft, but I'm going to be like, look,
she wants to let you,
these people. Yeah. And she's she's like, she's been to fantasy expos with me before. They weren't ever anything that she was dying to go to. So I will let her go with her friends in Cleveland or whatever, go do her thing. So it'll be fun.
Oh, it's going to be in Canton, huh?
It's going to be in Canton at yeah. So they've got the DoubleTree Hotel. I think they got a big area conference, just like a bunch of booths going to be there, a bunch of fantasy sites, and Ball Blast is going to be there, and there's so many. Eat Sleep Fantasy, those guys are real cool. It's just a bunch of fantasy football. Just I'm so excited.
Oh wow, I would nerd out.
Probably Scott Fish though. I think if I was going to go oh my gosh, bow down to you. Thank you for.
Are you gonna wear a Scott Fishbowl shirt?
See, maybe. I went to a fantasy football convention one time in Dallas, and Liz Loza was there, and I didn't I don't know, I was drinking. I didn't notice her or whatever, and she saw that I was wearing a Scott Fish shirt. She came up to me and she's like, "Are you in the Scott Fish Bowl?" I'm like, "I am." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, me too." And then now we're super tight. So
love that.
Yeah, it's really so cool. Mm-hmm. She really is, and somebody that I definitely look up to, and she's been on here, and hearing her story, it's just so crazy to hear all these people's stories and to see wow, this is a career you can do.
It is amazing. It is amazing that it is, something you can be so passionate about and actually, do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
People love it.
I can only wish, but I'm never going to be in that tier. But this talking to people about what they do, and giving people the opportunity to hear people's stories and take notes and learn. I want people to excel. So it's pretty dope. This whole community, I don't know. I'm geeking out over here about it.
For all that you're putting out there, you're going to get back. You're putting a lot in. Fun. You're going to get a lot out.
It's just and that's a thing, and everybody needs to know that too. You gotta. It's a lot. So it's a lot. If you think it's easy, it's not.
No, I'm sure.
It's and. Yeah. So, let's talk about. I want to talk. You brought up your kids earlier. Are your kids into fantasy football or football in general?
I mean, my daughter who's 21.
Mm-hmm.
She's enjoyed watching Hard Knocks or the Amazon series All or Nothing. She just likes good. She likes documentaries and stuff like that. But as far as sports go, I mean, she played softball, and we have a cool daddy-daughter relationship in terms of I would play catch with her and assistant coach her team and that kind of stuff, and we all go to Dodger games together out here. But she's not into fantasy. My son, who he does fantasy with his friends now. He started that with them. I think he likes it. Even though he had a fantasy team, I was still be like, "Hey man, football's on. Gotta watch the team. Watch the team." He's like, "Oh yeah." But he's more on PS4, with his friends playing games. He preferred to do that.
Yeah.
And I would help him pick his team.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was going to be a real bonding moment. And then halfway through Sunday, he'd come up and be like, "Why did you make me start this guy? He's got a 0." And I'm like, "Oh God." So
now you know what the analysts have to hear every week during game day.
I guess they do. I guess they do. It's not fun. But he's going to do it again this year. My wife is ugh. She knows that football's coming.
Does she?
Yeah, she's like, eh. But because
she can feel it in the air.
Well, she sees me change. This look comes over my face. I'm on my phone. Yeah. I can't think of anything else. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't get any sleep because I want to be with her and present for her.
Yes, right.
To do my fantasy stuff, I have to do it after she falls asleep or before she wakes up.
I do it before. I'm like over here on Sunday morning, like going to sleep. I'm like, no, I gotta say. So I feel
set my waivers. I gotta set my waivers
for real, because that's another horrible feeling is when you forget to do that, and then everybody picks up all the players you wanted to pick up.
God,
and
that's the worst.
It's so bad. Are there anything else you can think of that is like the worst that could happen when you're doing stuff?
Yes. It's like, okay, so when I'm in the middle of something important and all of a sudden I see activity, I can feel it in the air, and I'll like just know that there's a player that's all of a sudden available because of, something unfortunate like an injury or something. When did Antonio Brown become the hot pickup? Like last year, like that. I remember that happening and being like,
yeah, it did.
You race to the waiver wire, like, oh my God, I gotta get him. You're just like, oh, he's gone.
He's gone.
Oh, Tim got him. Oh, so-and-so got him already.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. I hate that because you had a shot at him. Or you drop a guy, who goes off and you can't get him back. I dropped David Johnson that year that he exploded. And if I just kept him on my team one more week, I probably would have won the league. It's like that.
Yeah. Oh man, it's always what if, but
what if
I would have just, I've done that too. And you'll drop a player and somebody else will like immediately pick that player up. And you're like,
wait a minute,
what do you know that I don't know? And then, oh, I know. Then they go off and you're like, really? They went off on your team. I dropped them. You got them for free.
Yep.
Not better or anything about it. There are good parts of fantasy football. Most of fantasy football is good. We're making it sound real depressing and sad, but
even that stuff is fun.
It is. It really is. Pumping. Get you on edge. So
tilt.
When you watch football, how is watching, like sitting down with Tom Everett Scott and watching football? How is that? Like, what is that experience like? And are you like a vocal watcher of football?
Yeah. I'm screaming at the TV. I have to like get my computer set up. I get the red zone on the TV. This is certainly last year when there was no going out. Like I'd much prefer to meet my pals at a sports bar and watch all the games. Mm-hmm. And then my wife, I'm not in her space, and she doesn't have to know about it. You know what I mean? And I can come home at the end of the day, and in LA, it ends early enough to be like, oh, well, I'll make dinner now. Like, there's only one game on tonight, and we'll watch that. I'll be on the background, but I'll make, you know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit easier to do it that way. Whereas if I'm home, I can't even take my eyes away from the TV. I'm like, I'm spilling water over here because I'm not looking at what I'm doing. I'm a wreck.
It's football to me. Like when I'm watching football, I like need everybody to just get out of my space and be quiet. Let me do this. Same. Especially if I'm watching the Cowboys, because usually I'm like so frustrated, mad, throwing my phone, because it's the Cowboys. And what are you going to do? Like, no offense to you, Mr. My team's won all these, like when the Cowboys won their last Super Bowls, I was in elementary school. It was like still pre, that thing you do. I was like 8 or something, but
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The triplets, right?
Yeah. And I wish I could remember that stuff. I really do. I remember Super Bowl parties with, going to people's houses with my parents, but I don't remember anything really.
It's true. The Cowboys had their heyday back then in the early mid 90s, but and they beat up on the Bills every year. But at least you're always in the playoff hunt. Your division's so bad that you're always in it. Yeah,
sucks. Especially last year with like you could get into the playoffs with that record, like
crazy.
I don't.
You must be so happy to get Dak Prescott back because they look pretty tough before he went down.
That offense is so explosive and so nice. It's just so nice, and it's like
I definitely don't want to walk away from too many drafts without some Cowboys on my team. Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've been secretly trying to acquire. Well, it's not gonna be that secretly anymore. Michael Gallup, because I'm like, even if he is not great, he doesn't have a great season. I think he's talented enough. He should be on a team where he can be that number 1, number 2 guy and not the number 3 guy. But hey, it happens. That's what happens. CeeDee Lamb fell to the Cowboys. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I know. I had Gallup on a ton of teams last year and it never really panned out for him.
Yeah. And you know, and that's, I had a lot of like Blake Jarwin last year too. And that was another thing. I traded for him in a lot of dynasty leagues, and so I have like a Jarwin / Schultz bench right now. Where I'm like,
I know, I wonder if either one of them is even going to be good for fantasy.
Yeah. Probably not. I was starting to try to write an article on Blake Jarwin yesterday, and I was like, I can't do this, and actually like feel like good putting it out. So scrap all that and start over. But
too painful for the heart.
That's too painful. I was like, I like a challenge. Let's try it. And I was like, that's too much of a challenge for me. So, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that one of the other like kind of like frantic moments of Sunday morning is thinking you've got it all figured out and still feeling so much stress and pressure right up till kickoff. And you're like, you know what I mean? Like I try to get all my stuff done so that I can just sit down and enjoy football. But I still feel like, oh my God, like I need to know if this guy's starting. I need to know, you know, this piece of information from Adam Schefter. I need to know who to start, you know, blah, blah, blah. There's always some like sweat right before kickoff.
Right.
And then as soon as the games start, you always see some guy go for this long touchdown that you're like, I didn't start him.
Yep. That is the exact thing that goes on. That's exactly, you described it perfectly.
Yeah. Not him.
No. I'll get texts from my sister because she's in my home league, and she'll be like, oh my God, my team is doing so bad. And I'll be like, dude, it's like 10 minutes worth of football so far. Like, calm down. I should have started so-and-so. There's a lot of time left. Exactly. Pump the brakes on that. So I want to go back real quick to talk more about, like you said, FanDuel was something that you enjoyed, and then you went on to talk about Underdog and about how that's new and everything. So every year it seems like something new.
Right.
Has there been a even with the Scott Fish Bowl, is there like a rule or a setting in a league that is like kind of maybe out of the norm that you like?
That's a great point. I mean, most of the stuff I do is all the same scoring. I think the guillotine thing is probably the most nuanced thing, where like if you're the lowest scoring team, you're done. You're done for the year. You know, you're out. That to me is, I don't know if I like it, but it's certainly different than the other leagues. Yeah. I do have an old friend, the guy who runs one of those guillotine leagues I was talking about. He is starting. He sent out an email probably a month ago, seeing if anybody wanted to do a kitchen sink league. And it's super interesting because I know him. He's like a game show host. He just wants to make it the most like spectacular, you know, interesting, diverse like thing going. Like he'll do. I was in a league with him. It no longer exists, but where during the auction, and we would do a live auction, you would draw different things out of a hat, like kind of like that Monopoly game where you have like community chest or chance cards. Like you would draw these cards that would give you like this ability. It would say something like, you can steal the next draft pick. You know, and you're like, wow. Oh my God. Like, it turns it completely. So he's going to start a whole new league this year called the Kitchen Sink League, where he's going to throw in all these different crazy rules. And just reading his email made me dizzy and made me also think, I don't know if I want to do that this year. I don't know if I want to be like sweating outlandish stuff, you know, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't really do anything out of the ordinary. I just had to convince my home league to do PPR. So that's always a fun conversation to try to get your league to look, you guys, we're a little slow on this. We should already be doing PPR. Come on. So I totally feel you on that. Just because it's like higher scoring, and they're all happy that we do it now. They're just like, oh yeah, this is better. Oh yeah. Well, plus, and I find that like new things too, like when you're trying to explain it to people, they don't get it because they're used to what they're used to. Totally. You kind of just got to like make it happen. If you're the commissioner, sometimes you just got to push something through and be like, this is how we're doing it. Yeah.
like going to Superflex. Like we were, I think, yeah, for a while it was just one QB, and then I was like, I want to do Superflex. Like seriously, let's do Superflex. So people were like, I don't really know what that is, and I was like, look, you like quarterbacks? Do you like them? Okay. Do you like a lot of quarterbacks? Then let's go. Let's do this. And then from there,
You
they're
like
like, okay,
quarterbacks?
you like quarterbacks? Because I mean, they are, very important piece of your fantasy football team.
Yeah,
So.
it is. I think I agree. Superflex is more interesting.
It is more
Yeah.
interesting, and it's really fun because you could go with these Mahomes type guys, or you could go with the Kirk Cousins and
Yeah,
the
you could
guys
put
like
together
that.
something else.
Yeah, put something, and the way that roster builds are and everything, like you were talking about earlier, with going, it's just really cool to see how you can construct different rosters. And do you ever find conflict though, being in that many leagues, having players that you're having to root for, but at the same time they're on the
Yeah.
opposite team, on the opposite in a different league?
Yep, totally. There's another thing that comes into it, and it is true. I will see that. Like I'll look down the road and be like, oh man, like I have Kamara, but I'm going to be playing in another league against the guy who has Kamara on a week that I need Kamara to go off.
Yeah,
and I think that happens so often, and nobody has the exact same lineup as you in another league. So usually it's like, okay, well I'll be happy if Kamara does great, obviously.
mm-hmm.
I just hope that the rest of his guys that I don't have in common with him aren't as good, But yeah, I've been in that boat. Where you're just like, oh man, I'm just like gonna break even here. Boo.
Yeah. Oh, and it's even worse when it's like that last game and you like know you're gonna lose this league because you're either gonna win this league or you're gonna win this league, but you're not gonna win both because he's got this guy, but you've got, and you need that guy to.
Yep. I'm going to get buried. Yeah. I'm going to get buried by the guy who's going to help me. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hopefully, like it's the league that you really were hoping to like take the whole thing that you do well in, but it's so crazy. Chaotic, but fun.
It is. It's chaotic and fun. I love it. I mean, it was like, I made it to the finals in like 5 leagues last year and didn't win a single one of them. I was just like, that sucks. 0-5? Like, oh, come on. But I was just happy to make the finals in 5 leagues. That was huge.
With COVID and everything too, that kind of put a wrench in fantasy football. Some leagues they were like, we're not even going to do it this year. And everything. Were you worried that the NFL there wasn't going to be any? And then
it was certainly a possibility, right?
Right. Yeah, it was definitely a possibility. And I don't know how people would have been able to, like, how they would have had to change their content during, if there's no season. Like, what are we talking about? So
I felt like I had a little hope. I had a little hope going into it that everyone was gonna like try to make a season happen or bust, because it was just seemed so important for morale, for the economy. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the rich people who make money from football were going to make it happen no matter what. But it was great to have a season. It was great to have fantasy. It was.
How did the whole, like, obviously none of us have dealt with something like COVID-19 and the situation at hand, what's going on and what was going on. How did that affect, like, your day to day? Like, how did your life change from what you were doing previously to, like, I'm a working actor, but there's this pandemic?
Well, I mean, it was particularly bad for me, for my show. I'm sorry. Like we were in the middle of shooting season 3 and we got shut down like everybody else. But then later on during the year, they completely canceled the show, which was a real shock. We still don't really know the reason. I'm sure it's money. It usually is the reason, but it was a shame because we had such a good fan base and we had such a good show going.
Yeah.
So I would say like that was one of the things that was just such a bummer and a shock. And then even though productions did go on with other shows and movies and things were happening, and I had friends that were going off to do shows in the age of COVID, I still didn't work. So that show got shut down in March 2020, and I didn't do my first job since then until May of 2021. So it was over a year for me, which I'm lucky that I even got to work after that long. There are lots of people who are hurting, but for me as an actor, that's what I went through. We luckily we were doing okay before then, so we were able to manage. And but I will say it was nice to get back to work.
And yeah, if you guys haven't seen, I'm sorry, like it's out there. Go watch it. Streaming platforms. I searched for it today. It's there. Go watch it because it's awesome, And we watched during the pandemic. I know a lot of people during this time when they're at home quarantining or they're just at home because work says you get to work from home now, and binge watch that show. Right? Did you get a lot of people that were like, I just finished it during
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of people on Twitter like, oh, my new favorite show. And then they're like, wait, it's canceled.
So you're like, sorry, but that's how that. And then like, I big Kim's Convenience fan too. So then they did, and so I'm like, really quit doing this to me because us as people who are watching what you guys are putting out, like you guys helped us get through a shitty time. And that's what, you guys do. You guys help us get through shitty times. So, to have that taken away, I know it's horrid and for you, like just frustrating and all kinds of emotions, but like we love the show. So we're just we wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm in the same boat. I have shows that I love that just don't come back.
Yeah. And well, I don't want to talk anymore about the sadness that is a wonderfully awesome show that everybody should still go check out. Please check this show out. It is so freaking hilarious. It's hilarious. Like I was like, should I watch this while I'm working? I don't think I'll be able to like pay attention to my work. So no, it's not one of those shows that you just have on in the background. You need to watch it because it's hilarious.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm getting all angry and bitter about I want it. I want my So okay. So let's talk about happier times. What do you like to do when you're not working and playing fantasy football?
Well, I really enjoy hanging out with my family. We like to do a lot of stuff together. And other than that, and my dogs and just pretty basic, pretty simple stuff. Like we like to bike to the beach. We like to get together with friends. It's pretty boring, but I love it. I love it so much. Sometimes we travel, but it's pretty rare. Like usually if I'm traveling for work and I can go to a cool location, I'll definitely fly the family to meet me. Mm-hmm. And, so actually that's what I have coming up. I have a job in North Carolina. I'm going to be doing an Amazon series called The Summer I Turned Pretty. It's based on a young adult novel series about this young girl who's 16 years old and her family goes and visits this other family every summer at their beach house. And so it's lovely. It's written by Jenny Han, and I'm super excited for that. I start that in a couple days, and be on the lookout for that.
Definitely. I need something new. So
and I'm going to bring the family with me there because I've never been to Wilmington, but I hear it's beautiful. So we're going to check that place out.
Excellent. Yeah, a lot of Dawson's Creek in my life. So
Yep.
Okay, so before we go, can you I know you just told everybody what you're about to do, but you want to tell everyone where they can find your stuff and anything else that they need to know because the people want to know.
Okay. Well, I'm on Twitter at Tom E. Scott. I'm on Instagram. I don't know for how much longer.
No one's on Instagram anymore.
At Tom Everett Scott on there, but I don't post much lately. But I'm doing this series on Amazon that'll be coming out soon. I've done a couple movies, one for Hallmark, one for Lifetime that'll be coming out soon. I'm super excited about this Wonders event where the Erie Seawolves AA team for Detroit Tigers are going to be the Erie Wonders for a day on September 4th. It's going to be amazing. It's the Saturday of Labor Day weekend. I know not everybody is able to get there, but we are raising money for a charity that now is slipping my mind, and that is not cool. Let me pull this up super quick, and I will tell you exactly what the charity is called. Hang on.
No.
It is called...
I'm jealous of anybody and everybody that gets to go to that.
Hold on. No, I'm so bummed that I don't know this. Hold on. What is it? Here we go. Noticeability. It's so the guys that from the band that are going to be there are me, Steve Zahn, Jonathan Sheck, and Ethan Embry, the 4 members of the Oneaters.
Yeah.
And we're going to throw out the first pitch, and we are signing jerseys and other memorabilia. and raising money for Noticeability, which is a charity that benefits kids with dyslexia and learning disabilities. And so we're super happy to be able to raise money for them for a good cause, and also just get back together and celebrate the 25th anniversary of That Thing You Do.
Super awesome. Oh man, I am like you describing that. I know you were like talking to me earlier about being jealous about me going to the Fantasy Football Expo, but I mean, that event right there just sounds like a dream come true. So if you guys get to go to that, like,
yeah, super pumped. We're going to do the game, and then half hour after the game ends, they're going to put the movie on, and everyone's going to get their lawn chairs and sit out on the field and watch the movie.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yes, please make sure you guys go to that if you're in the area and you can get out there. That would be super, super awesome. And let me know all about it. And I'm sure we'll be following you, Tom, to get all the behind the scenes stuff.
Oh, fantastic.
Really
I will use Instagram for that. I will be posting pictures for sure and videos. And if you go to my Instagram or Twitter, like I said, at Tommy Scott or at Tom Everett Scott on Instagram, I have the link in the bio. And if you are able to go, you can get tickets by clicking on that link.
Excellent. Tom, I wanted to let you know that you were talking earlier about Tom Hanks and how awesome it was to be able to, that whole experience. For me to be able to talk to you is like a crazy, like never in a million years would I ever think like, here's a fangirl moment, but maybe I'm fangirling, but no, dude, like seriously, you're like such an awesome person. And it's so cool that you are so willing to be a part of this community and be such a awesome person in this community. Come on our shows, talk with us, and just be, it just makes it. I tell my friends like, hey, I'm going to talk to, and they're like, oh my gosh, like I told my friend today, and she's like, oh my gosh, like Because I Said So is like one of my favorite movies, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm like, me too. But I was a secret Mandy Moore fan when I was like 16 or something, so that was my teeny bopper self. So yeah, and then all your roles that like people are like obsessed with, like from Guy to I was just looking at, like, my friend was telling me that she loved you, and what freaking movie was she telling me? Like, what are the big movies that people are like?
Oh well, Because I Said So, I was in with Mandy Moore.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people. There's a lot of Dead Man on Campus fans.
Dead Man on Campus is exactly what it was. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but yeah, I'm like, yes, and all these movies that like we just like the kind of movies that when they're on like a rainy Saturday and you're a little hungover, you can just like watch that, and it's just like awesome stuff.
Well, listen, Kacey, you are awesome, and I have enjoyed talking with you and all our interactions. So I do this because you're amazing, and I would not just jump on any podcast. This is the kind I want to do, and it's because of you.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you letting me be this like crazy fangirl at the very end of this podcast. But the entire time I was talking to you, I'm like, this is crazy that I'm talking to Tom Everett Scott about fantasy football. Like, that's a weird, like, you told me last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago that was going to happen. Like, that's a weird sentence, but it's an awesome sentence. So thanks again, Tom.
My pleasure. It was so much fun. Thank you, Kacey.
Thank you. All right, everybody, come back next week for another episode of Get Real, and make sure you stay rad.